off.
Welcome back to the QORcast. Right now we're in the middle of the woods. We got a river behind us this way. We got some trees that way.
No,
Snow on the ground.
This is like
It's
scuffed as
good.
fuck, but we love it. So yeah, hopefully every episode we just do this, just random spots. So we gotta keep you guys on your toes. But welcome back. And today we'll be talking about mostly Valorant. So I know the new season's coming up, and we're talking about Creator Cup. So we can start with Creator Cup.
Creator Cup starts next week.
This week.
This week.
This weekend.
This coming week.
This weekend. So as of this recording, it comes out Saturday. It should start actually on Saturday or Sunday because it's a split one. So if you guys don't know what Creator Cup is, it's a tournament run by Frosto, and it's a team, like it's a tournament, but it's with a bunch of creators. So all your creators you can think about, they all join it. But this time there's a twist. If you win a split, your team qualifies for a LAN in Las Vegas in the HyperX Arena.
Oh yeah.
So yeah. And if you guys didn't make it for the first split, that's fine. We're having 3 splits. So if you guys didn't manage to sign up for the first split, you have 2 other splits to sign up with. And there's an LCQ. There is an LCQ. There is. So you have plenty of chances to qualify if you don't, and you can always just make your squad. There is like a little format thing though you have to follow. There is like a point system regarding it also that you have to go through. Like you can't just go like 5 immortals. It has to be like differentiate. So if you go to the Creator Cup Twitter, we'll link it below, but if you go there, it has all the details. Actually, most of the teams for Split 1 have been announced. I saw today's post, like they've been announcing, so they should all be finalized by today or early tomorrow. So, tournament starts as of this. If this video comes out and you see it, it basically started.
Then the next big piece of Valorant news is QOR has announced their new Valorant roster just a couple minutes ago as of this recording.
Literally a couple minutes ago. But
who do we got?
So we got, if we look at it, we got
Snarly.
We got Nerve. We got Logan. Logan's returning.
Logan is returning.
And we have 2 new. So we have Darkest. And then we picked up a 17-year-old named Timotino. So I'm not familiar with him, unfortunately, but what Nadine has been telling me, he's cracked, and what Slow's a mastermind. He knows, he's like, how do you explain it? He just knows when like a kid is cracked, and he just picks him up.
He knows the young talent.
He knows the young talent. He knows like the diamond in the rough kind of thing. He's like a guru when it comes to knowing who is good and who is not. So I don't know how Slow does it, but he does it. So that's our squad, and of course we have Ocean and Slow. They're the coach and analyst. But yeah, so actually, this format's a little different. So stage 1, how it works is from January to March, but it's Swiss stage. So how it works is it's a whole 16-team bracket, so all in one group, but you're labeled, so top 8 makes it the playoffs. So it just depends on your win rate. I mean, your win, your match differential, losses, that's all how it works. It's a Swiss stage.
Okay.
Which I kind of like it better. I like this whole, like just one leaderboard instead of like 2 different teams.
The 2 different brackets with all the stuff.
Yeah, I don't like that. So I like the whole 16 team. Just win and see who has the best record after the end of it. So that's really good. Our first match is Monday, the 27th. We're going against Sad Esports, which is kind of funny because I think also Darkest played for them. So we kind of stole Darkest from Sad Esports and we took him to us. So it's going to be a little bit of a rivalry match. And that's it really for the Valorant portion. I think
that's pretty much everything we got until the guest.
Yeah, now we have the guest who is Ashurvok, one of our creators.
Talk about the crazy drama
that's
happening in the caster community.
It's going to be insane. So here we go. And welcome back to part 2 of the QORcast Season 4, Episode 2 podcast. Well, it's kind of a long one.
That's
but
not a roundabout.
Our guest today is Ashurvok. So if you want to introduce yourself for the people who might not know who you are.
Yeah, of course. To everyone who's wondering why is Ash's mic so scuffed? I apologize. I'm in a parking lot right now in West Hills. So to introduce myself, my name is Ashurvok, also known more as the #1 Castervok. It's a thing that's kind of stuck after all this time. And I've been commentating in semi-professional to Tier 1 esports for about, I want to say 7 years now. Kind of stuck in between T1 and collegiate. I attend UCI, I work for UC Irvine Esports. It's pretty chill. And yeah, glad to be here.
Yeah.
Of course.
So,
There's some interesting stuff going on in the caster
Ooh.
scene that you were telling me a bit about the other week, but you want to kind of explain the situation that's going on and maybe how that's affecting you and some other casters?
Oh boy, howdy would I. So
okay.
essentially,
I don't know anything, so I'm going in blind. I think you probably told Danny, but I have no idea what's going on. So I don't know anything.
okay, so essentially trying to explain the situation as best as possible, and this is coming from Seb right now over at Score Esports, also the caster out of Canada. It's the fact that there was drama going on with Rocket League in general, but then everything that came out of the woodwork, it kind of applied to pretty much everyone, but to explain it as best as possible. And the Twitter thread was that orgs were apparently and allegedly using Liquipedia points from casters to base salary and pay off of it. I'm sitting here like, wait, that can't be possibly true, right? Only to read this entire thread and realizing that despite the fact that these prize pools were so high up, these casters, me and myself, I know this from personal experience. I have a whole story for it. After this one was the fact that they were being paid far less, and that tier 2 talent, especially within Rocket League, was not being treated in the way that it deserved. And then realizing that, hey, wait a minute, going more to the Liquipedia part, then all of a sudden there might have been some truth to that, considering that no one I know at this point in time can make a Liquipedia page through Rocket League as a broadcaster. They've completely disabled it. And I'm sitting here like, holy shit, there's no way in hell these organizations are doing this to a point that, hey, if you have more Liquipedia points than the other broadcaster, we'll consider upping your pay. And I'm like, dude, first of all, that shit's insane. Second of all, that shit is insane. Like, I can't really find any other way to describe that.
So, before you go on, how does one acquire more Liquipedia points?
That's a great question. So when it comes to the Liquipedia point system, or notoriety, right, as they put it for their broadcasters, one guideline is that you have to have a certain amount of broadcast to even be considered, right, for a page. And, I want to go off of, let's say Marvel Rivals, Liquipedia over there, it just started up. I mean, it's a fresh new game. It's a fresh new esport. It's the fact that each broadcast you do is based in a tier system, and those tier systems, right, are based into points. So in my situation, when I worked with the Twitch Rivals, that was a show match. And then MRC, the Marvel Rivals Championship, that was considered A tier. And depending on if it's in person, that might be 16, maybe 20 points. But if it's offline, then that gets pegged down to like 8, maybe like 16 points. It accumulates. And if you go over a certain amount of points, you get a page, obviously. Okay. So with the point system, apparently organizers were using that to really gauge a caster's, quote unquote, worth, if you will, to see if that they were really good enough for the broadcast. I'm like, dude, that's completely and totally inappropriate. You can't be doing that.
Mm-hmm. So I'm sorry. So you're telling me they're using fan points to dictate how much they should pay you for casting,
yes,
not how good you are of an actual caster and how compared to the other person.
Yeah, according to Seb, that was allegedly the thing going through, and I'm like, dude, that was.
So is this like alleged, or do you know like if there's confirmation that this has happened actually before?
Well, it's a slippery slope, considering that when Seb first brought it out, and then all of a sudden there might have been truth to it, considering that Liquipedia, I believe, it was either themselves or somebody else, disabled the usage of making new pages in the first place. So I have a feeling there is some truth to that. Plus, with a few of the casters coming out and some confirming, I believe, that it was also a thing, it was just absolutely insane. And then the stories that followed after, some of which that I recognized, did concern me also in, the broader treatment of casters. And then that leading into further caster on caster beef, drama, and violence. I'm like, dude, what in the hell is going on here? It just got completely worse. I mean, all of a sudden we're looking at, Liquipedia points being used, and then casters being undercut, and then other casters undercutting other casters just to get positions better. And I'm like, dude, what are we doing?
Mm-hmm.
That's holy shit. Wait, like, there's a lot to go into. I'm not gonna lie, this is a lot.
It's
this
a lot.
is insane. So like they really using like Liquipedia points? That's just insane. That's like, for example, if I was, for example, I was doing a better casting job than Tens, but Tens, because he has a bigger fan base, he would get more points, even though he's a much arguably a worse caster than me.
Ooh, not gonna lie, you saying that 10s might be worse. You know what? Let me
No.
that's
In a broad
I'm
spectrum.
joking. I'm joking. I got
Fans are gonna get mad at me now.
But yeah, like in a way, yeah, when it comes to Liquipedia points, it might be a thing. And then factoring in, I know there is a possible situation of, what was it? I know this is following after the thread that there was talk brought to my DMs that, some casters were also getting undercut based off of popularity of their co-caster, or maybe their co-caster was, a quote unquote streamer that had far more numbers than them, then yeah, it would get a little bleak. You might not get picked. And yeah.
So it's a more of who you know than what you know, and they really base off like your numbers as a popularity as a figure than your actual skills as a caster.
Yeah, with some organizations that is the case, which sucks, and that has happened to me multiple times. I'm not going to name who, but it has happened.
Oh.
So they literally
this is
told
something
you
that's directly impacting like casters pretty much everywhere then.
Yes, this is impacting really not just tier 1 casters, but I feel it's far more prevalent in tier 2 to tier 3, especially with certain games like Rocket League, especially we're seeing this, and then going over to Valorant, that is very much a thing over there. I mean, ooh, because yeah, I remember there was someone else in the thread, I believe it was Plausible, who, I go back to that, and all of a sudden he was mentioning, the casters, being undercut, and how it left a sour taste in his mouth, and how he was trying to help a new group of casters, which I'm pretty sure I know exactly who, but then all of a sudden them turning around and doing it to him, I'm like, yeah, that has happened to me before also, and so many other casters that I know of still happening to this day.
That's so. When did this start, or has this been going on for like a year, months, weeks?
Knowing how esports has been operating and how long I've been a part of it, I think if we're talking like the main issue that's being brought up now, I imagine it has to have been happening for so long, maybe possibly like weeks, years even, that Seb is bringing it up.
Wow.
But with the things that, I've witnessed firsthand, yeah, this shit has been going on, I want to say almost since the rise of esports from, just like a grassroots thing into all of a sudden a multi-billion-dollar industry, with like the players, they get paid, but then commentators are still being treated to a point that we're like the minimum wage workers of, the industry.
Yeah.
And then looking back at that, Monty, he's a, prevalent commentator within the community, Overwatch League, everything. I've chatted with him a few times, really nice guy. And then him warning, like, I want to say 2022, 23, saying that if you're a commentator in esports, for the love of God, find something else than commentary, because this shit is not something that you can just live off of, pure rip. I should have listened to that when I wanted to get into this full time. I still do. But now, I have a secondary job that I have to fall back on, a degree and everything, because I know that being in casting, it's just not going to pay the bills. And unless you got into this early, if you're like just starting off, it's really not going to pay the bills for you for a very long time, possibly ever.
So even like if you're like a tier 1 caster, for example, like casters that are in, maybe more casters like that are already in Riot, in from like League and like Valorant. If you've already been in tier 1, you're kind of more or less safe, for example. But if you're like more like freelancing and doing different kinds of things, like for example FGC is like there's so much in FGC.
Oh yeah,
there's not enough like stability in there. So as a caster, and if you're strictly FGC caster, like your job is not secured.
Yeah, essentially, like, when it comes to the FGC, just been a part of that as well. And then meeting with a lot of the commentators that I've talked with, say through breakout series, is that I'm almost certain that 100% of us have actual day jobs that we have to rely on, fall back on. We're either college students, and then asking another commentator, and I was like, hey, have you like tried getting into this full time? And he goes, see, as much as I want to do that, going to these majors, I'm spending far more money on traveling to regionals and majors and bleeding it out way more than I'm making it back. And, he then goes on to say, I can make like 200 from one job, but all of a sudden that's gone in case of an emergency if I have to make a plane trip back home. I'm like, dude, that's not cool. He goes, I know. Like, I have to work a tech job just to keep this up, and even then, that's fucking me over. And I'm like, bro.
Wait, I'm sorry, but when you're casted and hired for a job, you still have to pay for the plane tickets to go there?
Well, in some situations, yeah, because that's the thing when it comes to players, right? They get sponsored, they get picked up, and they have everything comms covered. I feel unless you're in a position where you're already like a top caster, so commentator, I should say, like Tasty Steve level, sure they have like everything covered.
Yeah.
But then if you're on a smaller level, like at my point, then yeah, everything comes out of pocket. Well, some, I mean, if you're blessed enough to get sponsored by an org, then sure, some might get recomped. But if you're not, and you're just going solo and say you're commentating your first big event, I don't know, like Frosty Faustings, then yeah, you might be fucked out of your money based off the fact that you're paying for everything involved.
Yeah.
That's insane. Because I always assumed that the fact, like, okay, you're hired for a job, they'll at least fly you out or help you accommodate some form, like at least hotels or
Oh,
plane
sure, in some
tickets.
situations, but not like everything. I know I have an event coming up for, I believe it's Beak Bonk at Moscow, Idaho, and I'm looking at possibly having to pay maybe $300 to $450 out of pocket just to go. That's just the plane ticket.
Yeah.
I also have to figure out hotel and housing.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's insane. I've always assumed that, like, if you're hired or contracted for a job, you're always just like, I know you said, like, for example, like, if you're hired for Evo, at least, like, would they help you out with stuff like that, like something big like that? Would they accommodate you, or is that
See,
also if you're hired for Evo, you still have to pay for stuff out of pocket?
See, that's what I'm unaware of because I'm not so certain how Evo operates, when it comes to their commentators. And that is a brand new level of FGC commentary that I have yet to get to. It would be nice. But yeah, I know with, some people, I mean, might, maybe not. I mean, if you're with TNS, I imagine you're getting, some, maybe all of your things covered. I'd have to ask about that again. But if you're not, say you're like unsponsored, which I'll be honest with you, an org sponsoring commentator these days, I feel is incredibly rare unless you're also a content creator on the side or you have enough wherewithal or weight, I should say, just be able to pull your own as a commentator, just be sponsored.
Yeah.
Wow. Oh my gosh. This is great. I did not know all this. This is casting. Definitely casting is something that I'm not very familiar with. So like you explaining it is like so much easier because I'm not. I thought it was also like it was much easier. Like job is secured. I get it. Like players' jobs are usually not secured, but I never knew that caster's job is also. Even though if you're contracted to work, you're not. Not guaranteed a job.
At the end
also,
of the day, it is all freelance work. So freelance work in any field is almost never secured. Unless you got recurring clients, so.
Okay.
And that's
is that
the thing
also
with me?
No, you go. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's the thing with me, like being freelance. I can attest to that because I believe my best year this year has been like this year. Out of all 7 years, right? I've made a good chunk of money from both MRC and Twitch Rivals. But then I think my quote unquote worst year was actually last year, right? The most amount of money I made through the entire year off commentary was, I want to say about close to $800, possibly $900 in the first few months of January, February. And then after that, that was it. I was getting paid about 35 a job, maybe 25 a job, or 75, after a few jobs.
Yeah.
It's not livable as people would assume because I get questions all the time of, people wanting to go full time. And as much as I want to sound hopeful about it, I'm like, dude, please look into other things before you consider, right? That's the thing with players, but with some players, they, might fall out of a contract, or while they're in contract, they'll turn to content creation while they're playing at the same time. If they're not, then, prize pools can only keep you stable for so long. With commentators, it's average job, I want to say pay for me was 35 to 75. That's if I get lucky. Most of my FGC jobs are volunteer. I'm fine with that. I have a job to keep up with that now. But then, tier 1, that's where I'm aiming for. I know it's still hard considering that's already full with talent. So
So how does one go on? For example, how do you negotiate rates? Do you always is it because usually with your past work, or is it be like, hey, I've done this before? Do you always have you ever went away was okay, this is way below what I pay, but I'll still do it? Or do you usually stare your guys no, this is my rate and I won't work unless this is my rate?
That's the thing, and I'll come out and admit this. At one point, I was so desperate to get jobs that I was like, yeah, I'll do this for free. But then I had to cut that shit the fuck out because it was, it was undercutting other casters who really deserved to be in that spot instead. And in my improving, and then all of a sudden, I reached a point where I'm like, okay, I need to stand my ground. I need to negotiate my rates now that I have this experience. At least I have the backing to be able to go in here and be like, okay, this is a little too low. Can we negotiate something better that's, gonna treat me right per se? pay. And at some points I've been shut down on that. I've been overlooked. I've been replaced by somebody else who's willing to work for free. It happens. I'm totally fine with that. And well, not really, but yeah, you get it. And at some other points it's just some people are willing to, but then you can kind of hear the venom behind it. Okay, I don't really want to pay you this much, or I don't want to have to do it, but I feel that there's like less than 2 days until the tournament. I kind of have to now, and I'm like, okay, that's cool. We're probably not going to work again because now you're pissed at me. Yes I am. Understandable.
Yeah, so like never, like I'm guessing you'd always tell any casters like never like always undercut or work for free, because like you're kind of devaluing yourself on the process also, because they'll be like, oh, okay, this person worked for free, we can pay him like super cheap again, because they'll accept it.
Yeah, you're devaluing yourself. And then to some other casters, some of which I saw under the thread that I've worked with, you really just look like a, forgive my language for this one, and I might sound mean, I apologize. This is not aimed towards any people watching this. You kind of, you look and sound like a piece of shit if you do undercut yourself at some points purposely, and saying that I'll do it for free if you're desperate enough just to get a job. Like, I understand that, you want the exposure, you want the attention. On one hand, you are further hurting yourself by becoming the caster that is known to just work for free to get a job. And on the other hand, you kind of get the vitriol of other commentators who see that, who might have had that job, and all of a sudden they get a DM saying that, hey, you've been replaced, we found somebody else, and then you pop up. You're really going to get hate for that. Yeah. And chances that you working with that co-commentator, knowing that word travels very fast about behavior with other casters, it's not going to look good for you in the long run.
Mm-hmm. Wow. So have you ever do you ever is there like a list where I forget what it's called, but like when you ever like undercut or do something slimy behind someone's casters, like do other casters catch wind and like you as the unanimous agree is like, yeah, I don't want to work with this caster?
Oh, they know. We know that has happened so many more times than you would like to think. And I remember at one point, it gets bad. Like, I won't say much into it, but we definitely know. Like, we look out for those names, and all of a sudden it's like, yeah, I know there's something like that. So, if you're working an event, like I said, word travels fast. Reputation also travels very fast. And I'll say it can get very bad very quickly. Very bad.
Oh, wow. This is interesting, because I know content creation is a little different than casting, and that content creation is also content and all that. But casting is like more of like a professional job. Like
casting's a lot more like you're directly competing with the other people. Like there's
that's the thing. You're always competing.
And that's it. You're directly competing with the content creation. You could kind of do your own thing, and if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But casting, you're directly like. There's, say, 10 jobs on the table, so that means only 10 people can get them. So you got to figure it out.
Yeah. That's the thing with, I feel, content creation or, being a player in general, the player especially, that say you're on a contracted team. Obviously, you go against other teams. You can still be friends with some people the other day, have beef with others. But then when it comes to commentary, that being on like a more professional sense, I feel you can be friends with how many other casters you want, right? That's totally cool. But then at the end of the day, you might start to feel jealous of your other co-commentators, say they get a job, and, it can get just downward spiral from there. All of a sudden, you're depressed. You see all these people that, were formerly your friends getting more money or maybe more positions than you. And then everyone goes from being your friend and commentator to suddenly being I want to say professional rival, if you will. And then those professional rivals can quickly turn into enemies. And all of a sudden, it's just casters competing against other casters in an environment, that I want to say in an interesting way promotes the competition, but also I feel the way makes it way far more toxic than it needs to be. And it can get scary.
Yeah.
Oh. This is a side of commentary I've never seen. I didn't really know that much.
I feel I'm giving up like so many secrets talking about this, and if I get blacklisted, I apologize.
No, I mean you didn't mention anybody. It's like you just saying what's
true,
you saying the quiet part out loud.
Yeah.
You didn't mention anybody, so you haven't mentioned any words.
I feel it's the quiet part that needs to be talked about because it doesn't
Yeah.
get talked about enough. It really doesn't.
Yeah. Because people think like they see a caster like a few times, like, oh yeah, that's their full-time job. But then it's like, no, like sometimes that's actually their part-time job. That's not sustainable.
Yeah.
It's not livable.
Like I've had that people assume that about me, and then when I tell them, no, I'm going to college for a full-time bachelor's in art history, and I'm intending to pursue a job after that, they're like, wait, really? And I'm like, yes, did you not know this? It's like, no, understandable. I probably should have made that known, but yeah, that happens.
Yeah. Wow, this is interesting.
All
Yeah.
right, that is about
That is-
as much time we got for the episode. But thank you,
Appreciate it.
Ashurvok, for coming on. Is there anything you would like to promote or plug before the episode?
Yeah, I'd say check me out at all platforms. It's, at Ashurvok. I am doing Marvel Rivals now, so if you want to check out the Marvel Rivals Championship, Twitch Rivals at that one, please do. It's a lot of fun. I want to, thank y'all for bringing me on here. If I'm not seen at any other jobs, or maybe I've been quietly assassinated, it's this episode.
Yeah, and also, do you want to tell the fans if you're going to be attending Evo this year?
Yeah, at this point in time, I think it's guaranteed that I will be at Evo. I think mainly as a spectator than competitor. If I do, however, manage to convince Jake Man here in SoulCal to get me some coaching here and there, then I might be a competitor. It would be nice.
All right, perfect. Thank you, Ashurvok, for coming on. I appreciate it. Thank you guys for watching. Like, subscribe, and let us know what you guys think about the episode. Appreciate it. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Are you cold as fuck? I can barely feel my hands. Yeah.